Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a legal case that serves as a pretty chilling warning about the dangers that can hide behind promises of work abroad. So, we're going to be looking at a Supreme Court decision that really pulls back the curtain on the dark reality of illegal recruitment and human trafficking. We're going straight to the source here, the official court records, to piece together the facts, the legal battles, and the final, decisive judgment in this case. So here's how we'll break it down. We'll start with that deceptive offer, walk through the victim's terrible ordeal, look at the conspiracy itself, the court's ruling, define the specific crimes they were convicted of, and then get to the final judgment. Okay, let's dive right in. This all kicked off back on June 3rd, 2005, with what seemed like a casual encounter, but was actually the start of a very sinister plan. So the offer was made by a guy named Ronnie Aringo. The job sounded decent, a restaurant entertainer in Malaysia. But the deception started almost immediately. See, the victim, Lolita Plondo, didn't have a passport. Now, a legitimate recruiter would have stopped right there, right? But not these guys. Their solution was to tell her to just use her sister's passport, claiming they had connections to illegally replace the photo. I mean, that was the first massive red flag that nothing about this was legal. And so, with these completely false promises, Lolita's journey began. But it devolved from a hopeful trip into an absolute nightmare, and it happened really, really fast. This timeline just shows you how terrifyingly quick the whole thing was. She boards the boat on June 6th. The very next day, she arrives and finds out the restaurant is actually a front for prostitution. Just a week after that, she's forced to start working there under threat. It took over a month of this horror before she could finally get a message to her sister and eventually escape and report the crime. The speed is just chilling. The second Lolita and the other women got to the club, they were trapped. They were told they owed the club money for their travel and that they'd have to repay it by entertaining customers. This is a classic textbook tactic called debt bondage. It's a key tool for human traffickers because it creates this fake debt that victims can just never seem to pay off. And Lolita's testimony, which is all documented in the court records, it detailed just horrific violence and sexual abuse. The court records are explicit, documenting her being threatened with a gun, beaten, just unimaginable things. So, when the prosecution looked at all this, they argued that this wasn't just one crime. They saw two distinct offenses: illegal recruitment and trafficking in persons, all committed by a coordinated group, a conspiracy. And the court found that these were not independent actions at all. It was a concerted effort, like a well-oiled machine. Each person had a crucial role. Aringoy was the referrer. He made the initial contact. Lalli was the transporter. She handled all the travel logistics. And the guy who's still at large, Relampagos, he was the financer and the handler who actually delivered her to the club. Now, when it came time for the accused to defend themselves, well, their case started to crumble pretty quickly, especially when the court started dissecting their conflicting stories. And this right here was a huge, gaping hole in their defense. You have Aringoy admitting he referred Lolita to Lalli. But then Lalli gets up and claims she'd never met Lolita before and that their meeting on the boat was a total coincidence. You just can't have it both ways. That direct contradiction completely torpedoed their credibility. So next, the defense tried to discredit the victim by attacking her character, but the court shut that down completely. They basically said her past was irrelevant. The only thing that mattered were the criminal actions of the accused. So to really understand why the convictions were so severe, we've got to look at the specific laws that were broken. This is the legal foundation of the entire case. Okay, so first up is illegal recruitment under Republic Act 8042, the Migrant Workers Act. The law defines this really broadly, and here's the crucial part. It includes the simple act of referring someone for a job abroad if you don't have a license. So when Aringoy said he only referred Lolita, in the eyes of the law, that was basically an admission of his participation. And it gets even more serious than that. Because Aringoy, Lalli, and Relampagos were working together as a group of three, the crime got elevated to illegal recruitment committed by a syndicate. And this is considered a form of economic sabotage, which carries a much, much heavier penalty. Then there was the second crime, trafficking in persons. Under this law, the key element is exploitation. It doesn't actually matter if the victim initially agreed to travel. The moment there's deception about the true nature of the work, the crime of trafficking has occurred. All right, so that brings us to the end game, the disposition of the case, where the court handed down the sentences for these extremely grave offenses. For each of the two separate crimes, both Lalli and Aringoy received a separate sentence of life imprisonment, and on top of that, they were ordered to pay very significant fines for each conviction. So yeah, let's just add that up. That's 2 life sentences and a total fine of 2.5 million pesos for each of them. That number really represents the substantial penalty the court imposed for the crimes of economic sabotage and human exploitation. And beyond the criminal penalties, the Supreme Court also recognized the profound harm done to the victim. It ordered the accused to pay Lolita 500,000 pesos in moral damages for her suffering and another 100,000 in exemplary damages, which are designed to serve as a public warning to anyone else who might consider committing such acts. So what's the ultimate takeaway here? I think this case shows us in no uncertain terms that in the eyes of the law, there are no small parts in a criminal conspiracy. A seemingly innocent referral can be the first crucial step in a devastating chain of exploitation. And as we've seen, the consequences for that can be a lifetime.